Welcome to Lotus Light Teachings, a space where we explore wisdom, mindfulness, and the deeper truths of life. Today, we're going to talk about something truly liberating: how letting go can bring you more happiness as you age. Society tells us to keep pushing forward, to do more, to achieve more. But what if real peace comes from doing less? What if the secret to joy is not found in chasing, but in releasing? In this video, we'll uncover 8 things you should stop holding on to in order to embrace a lighter, more fulfilling life. Not as a sign of neglect, but as an act of wisdom. So, take a deep breath, settle in, and let's journey together into the art of letting go. Imagine you're walking on a long journey, carrying a heavy backpack filled with rocks. At first, you don't even notice the weight. You've been carrying it for so long that it feels normal. But as the road stretches on, the burden begins to slow you down. Every step feels heavier. Then, one day, you meet a wise traveler who asks, "Why are you carrying all those rocks?" Confused, you look inside your backpack and realize that many of these stones don't even belong to you. Some were given by others. Expectations, judgments, regrets. Some are self-imposed. Perfectionism, worries, guilt. You hesitate for a moment, then start pulling out the heaviest ones. And as you drop them, step by step, your body feels lighter. The path ahead feels clearer. This is what life can be like when we learn to let go. When we release the unnecessary burdens that weigh us down, we free ourselves to experience life with greater ease and joy. So, what are the things we must unburden ourselves from as we grow older? Let's begin. 1. Stop worrying about what others think. There was a time in my life when I measured my worth by the opinions of others. I remember sitting in a cafe with a group of colleagues, carefully choosing my words, watching their reactions, trying to gauge whether I was being likable enough. Did I say the right thing? Did I sound smart? Did they think I was funny? The need for approval is something we learn early. As children, we seek praise from our parents, teachers, and friends. As teenagers, we try to fit into social circles, molding ourselves to be accepted. As adults, we chase professional success, social validation, and online recognition. But no matter how much approval we get, it never seems to be enough. One day, I stumbled upon a quote that hit me like a thunderbolt. "What other people think of you is none of your business." It was liberating and terrifying at the same time. Could I really stop caring? Could I truly live without constantly filtering my actions through the lens of other people's expectations? I think about Eleanor Roosevelt, a woman who faced relentless criticism throughout her life. When her husband, Franklin D. Roosevelt, was in office, people mocked her for being too outspoken, too opinionated, too involved in political affairs. But she refused to shrink. She once said, "Do what you feel in your heart to be right, for you'll be criticized anyway." That's when I realized something powerful. No matter what you do, someone will disapprove. If you chase success, people will call you ambitious and ruthless. If you choose a quiet life, they'll call you unmotivated. If you speak your truth, some will find you inspiring, while others will find you annoying. You will never please everyone. The turning point for me came when I attended a meditation retreat. A monk shared a simple yet profound story. Imagine you are walking down a street, and a stranger offers you a gift, but you don't take it. Who does the gift belong to? The answer was obvious: the stranger. Now, imagine that gift is an insult, an opinion, or a judgment. If you don't accept it, to whom does it belong? That story changed the way I saw the world. Every time someone criticized me or voiced their disapproval, I asked myself, do I want to accept this? Or do I let them keep their own judgment? I started making decisions based on my own values, not on what would make me look good in the eyes of others. I started speaking my mind without replaying every conversation later, wondering if I had said the wrong thing. I embraced the idea that true freedom comes when you stop needing permission to be yourself. If you find yourself constantly adjusting your words, your actions, your choices to fit someone else's idea of who you should be, pause. Ask yourself, am I living for them, or am I living for me? And remember, the people who truly matter in your life will love you for who you are, not for who you pretend to be. 2. Stop engaging in arguments and drama. I used to think that winning an argument meant I had proven my intelligence. I believed that if I could just explain my perspective well enough, the other person would see the light, change their mind, and maybe even thank me for enlightening them. Of course, that never happened. Most people don't enter debates to seek truth. They enter to defend their existing beliefs. No amount of logic or passion can make a person see something they are not ready to see. One of the greatest lessons I've learned is that peace is more valuable than being right. A few years ago, I found myself in a heated debate with a friend about politics. We were both well-informed, passionate, and utterly convinced that our viewpoints were correct. The argument lasted for hours. At the end of it, nothing changed, except that we both left feeling frustrated and drained. Then I came across a Zen teaching that shifted my perspective. If you throw a rock into a still lake, it creates ripples. But if the lake is calm, the rock sinks without causing chaos. I realized that I had spent too much of my life reacting to everything, trying to prove my intelligence, trying to correct people, trying to win battles that didn't matter. But the most powerful response is sometimes no response at all. Think about the Dalai Lama, a man who has faced political exile, criticism, and opposition for decades. Yet, he remains one of the most peaceful individuals on earth. Why? Because he doesn't waste energy fighting battles that lead nowhere. He embodies the principle of choosing peace over conflict. I decided to test this philosophy in my own life. The next time someone tried to bait me into an argument, I paused. Instead of defending myself, I simply said, "I understand your perspective," and then I let it go. At first, it felt like surrender, like I was backing down. But over time, I realized something amazing. I wasn't backing down, I was rising above. I was protecting my peace. I started walking away from gossip, from pointless debates, from social media fights that did nothing but drain me. I let go of the need to prove myself. And in doing so, I found something far more valuable than being right. I found tranquility. If you're constantly caught up in conflict, ask yourself, is this battle worth my peace? Will this argument change anything? Or is it just noise? You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to react to every opinion you disagree with. You can choose silence. You can choose stillness. You can choose peace. Letting go of what others think and choosing peace over drama are two of the most freeing decisions you will ever make. They allow you to reclaim your energy, your time, and most importantly, your sense of self. The world will always have something to say about you. Some will praise you. Some will criticize you. But at the end of the day, their opinions are like the wind, always shifting, never stable, and completely outside your control. So why spend your life chasing the wind? Instead, turn inward. Ask yourself, who do I want to be? What do I stand for? What truly brings me peace? Because when your happiness is no longer dependent on external validation or winning pointless arguments, you will experience a level of freedom that most people never reach. And isn't that what we're all searching for? So I'll leave you with this question. What would your life look like if you stopped trying to impress others and started living for yourself? 3. Stop trying to fix everyone's problems. I used to believe that love meant fixing. If someone I cared about was struggling, it was my job to step in, offer advice, and make everything better. I wore my ability to solve problems like a badge of honor. Being the person who could make things right, who could offer solutions, who could carry the weight that others couldn't. For years, I thought this was kindness. But then life, in its quiet and relentless way, taught me otherwise. A close friend of mine was going through a difficult time. She had just gone through a painful breakup, was stuck in a job she hated, and felt utterly lost. Every time we talked, I tried to lift her up. I sent her articles about self-growth, gave her pep talks, and even offered to help her find a new job. But no matter how much advice I gave, nothing changed. She remained stuck, unhappy, and resistant to any real movement forward. One night, after another long conversation filled with the same worries, the same complaints, and the same unwillingness to take action, I finally realized something. I was exhausting myself trying to fix a life that wasn't mine to fix. That night, I thought about Oprah Winfrey, a woman who has spent her life inspiring and helping others. Yet, even she has said, you can only help someone as much as they are willing to help themselves. I had been carrying my friend's pain like it was my own, trying to untangle her problems as if I could live her life for her. But the truth is, no one can walk another person's path. No matter how much we love someone, no matter how deeply we want to ease their suffering, some battles are not ours to fight. I was reminded of a simple story I once heard about a butterfly struggling to emerge from its cocoon. A man, seeing it struggle, decided to help by gently peeling away the cocoon. The butterfly emerged, but its wings were weak, its body fragile. Without the struggle, it had not developed the strength to fly. That story has stayed with me because it's a reminder that sometimes struggle is necessary. Growth is something each of us must earn on our own. When we interfere too much, we may believe we're helping, but in reality, we are only delaying someone else's transformation. I started shifting my perspective. Instead of trying to fix, I started listening. Instead of offering advice, I started asking, what do you think would help you right now? Instead of carrying their burdens, I reminded them that they were strong enough to carry their own. And something incredible happened. I felt lighter. I no longer felt responsible for fixing things that were never mine to fix. My relationships became healthier because they were no longer built on obligation, but on mutual understanding. If you find yourself constantly stepping in to solve problems that aren't yours, take a step back. Ask yourself, am I helping, or am I just carrying someone else's weight? Am I empowering them, or am I holding them back from learning their own lessons? Because love is not about saving. Love is about believing in someone's ability to save themselves. 4. Stop chasing perfection and let go of regret. For most of my life, I was trapped in the endless pursuit of perfection. I thought if I could just do everything right, say the right words, make the right choices, follow the right path, then I would finally feel at peace. But perfection is a cruel illusion, a mirage that keeps moving just out of reach. The more I chased it, the more I felt like I was falling short. I remember sitting in a coffee shop one day, replaying past mistakes in my mind. The things I should have done differently. The opportunities one had missed. The words I wished I could take back. Regret felt like a weight pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. Then I thought of Steve Jobs, a man whose life was anything but perfect. He was fired from Apple, the company he founded, only to return years later and transform it into one of the most influential brands in the world. If he had let failure define him, if he had clung to regret instead of growth, the world might never have seen the iPhone, the iPad, or any of the other innovations that changed the way we live. That was the moment I realized something. Regret is useless unless it fuels growth. In Japan, there is an art form called kintsugi where broken pottery is repaired with gold. Instead of hiding the cracks, they are emphasized, turning the once broken piece into something even more beautiful. Life is the same way. Every mistake, every heartbreak, every failure. These are the cracks in our story. We can try to hide them, or we can embrace them, fill them with wisdom, and recognize that our imperfections are what make us unique. I started asking myself different questions. Instead of, what if I had done things differently? I asked, what did this experience teach me? Instead of, why did I fail? I asked, how did this failure shape me into a better person? And with those questions, regret lost its power. I thought about the people I admire the most. Writers, artists, thinkers, leaders. None of them lived perfect lives. They all made mistakes. They all stumbled. But what made them extraordinary was that they didn't let those mistakes define them. They kept moving, kept learning, kept creating. Perfection is not the goal. Growth is. And growth comes from embracing our flaws, not erasing them. So if you find yourself caught in the cycle of regret, ask yourself, what if my mistakes are not failures, but lessons? What if, instead of running from them, I honored them as part of my journey? Because in the end, the most beautiful things in life are not flawless. They are the ones that have been broken and mended with gold. Life is too short to carry burdens that don't belong to you. It's too short to chase an impossible standard of perfection. We spend so much of our time trying to control things that were never meant to be controlled. Other people's happiness, past mistakes, the fear of what others think. But the moment we let go, the moment we release what no longer serves us, we make space for something far greater, peace. If you've spent years trying to fix everyone around you, maybe it's time to step back and let them find their own strength. If you've been chasing perfection, maybe it's time to embrace the cracks and see them for what they truly are. Proof that you have lived, learned, and grown. So I leave you with this. What would your life look like if you let go of the weight you were never meant to carry? Would you finally feel free? Would you finally breathe a little easier? Maybe it's time to find out. 5. Stop accumulating unnecessary possessions. I used to believe that the more I had, the more successful I was. A bigger house meant I was doing well. A closet full of designer clothes meant I had made it. The newest gadgets, the latest trends. I chased them all, thinking they would bring me happiness. But something strange happened along the way. The more I accumulated, the emptier I felt. It wasn't until I visited an old friend that I began to question everything. He lived in a small, simple apartment. No clutter, no excess, just a few meaningful objects that held deep personal value. Yet, he radiated peace. As we sipped tea in his quiet space, I couldn't help but feel something I hadn't felt in years, a sense of clarity. I thought about Steve Jobs, a man who revolutionized technology but was known for his minimalist lifestyle. He wore the same black turtleneck every day, lived in a house with barely any furniture, and once said, "The things you own end up owning you." That night, I went home and looked around my house. How much of what I owned actually brought me joy? How many things had I collected just for the sake of having them? I started letting go. First, it was a few clothes I hadn't worn in years. Then it was furniture that took up space but served no real purpose. The more I removed, the lighter I felt. It was like I had been carrying an invisible weight for years without even realizing it. There's a story about a Buddhist monk who owns nothing but a robe and a bowl, yet he walks through life with absolute freedom. He carries no burdens, no attachments. Only the peace that comes from needing nothing more than the present moment. I'm not saying we should all live with just a robe and a bowl, but I do believe there's wisdom in simplicity. Because when we stop accumulating for the sake of accumulating, we make room for what truly matters: experiences, relationships, and a life that feels full, not because of things, but because of meaning. So ask yourself, do the things you own bring you joy, or do they just take up space? Are you collecting memories, or just collecting objects? Maybe happiness isn't about having more. Maybe it's about needing less. 6. Stop trying to please everyone. For most of my life, I was a people pleaser. I said yes when I wanted to say no. I bent over backward to meet expectations that weren't even mine. I wore different masks depending on who I was with, just to be liked, to be accepted. And you know what? It was exhausting. There's a moment in life when you realize you can't be everything for everyone. It took me years to get there, but when I did, it felt like I had finally taken off a heavy coat I had been wearing for too long. I think about Princess Diana, a woman who spent much of her life trying to live up to the expectations of the royal family, the press, the public. She was beloved yet deeply misunderstood. In the end, when she started living for herself, speaking out, choosing her own path, that's when she truly became free. The truth is, no matter how much you try to please others, there will always be someone who disapproves. You will never be enough for people who refuse to see your worth. I learned this the hard way when I had to walk away from a friendship that drained me. I had spent years being there for this person, always available, always accommodating. But no matter how much I gave, it was never enough. One day, I finally said no. And just like that, the friendship ended. First, I felt guilty. Had I done the wrong thing? Had I been selfish? But then I realized, saying no to others sometimes means saying yes to yourself. You are not responsible for making everyone happy. That is an impossible task, and the more you try, the more you will lose yourself in the process. Start saying no without guilt. Stop apologizing for protecting your peace. Walk away from what drains you and move toward what fills your heart. And remember this: the people who truly love you will never demand that you shrink yourself to fit their expectations. They will celebrate you for who you are, not for who they want you to be. So, let me ask you, who are you living for? Them or yourself? Maybe it's time to choose you. 7. Stop rushing through life. I used to believe that life was a race, that if I wasn't moving fast enough, achieving enough, or ticking off the next big milestone, I was somehow falling behind. Society teaches us this early. Study hard, get the job, climb the ladder, buy the house, chase the next promotion. The world rewards speed, but no one ever tells us where we're actually running to. One day, I was standing in line at a coffee shop, scrolling mindlessly through my phone, thinking about the 100 things I had to do that day. The barista handed me my coffee, and without even looking up, I grabbed it and rushed out the door. Halfway down the street, I took a sip, and it was awful. It was the wrong order. But what struck me most wasn't the taste. It was the realization that I had been so distracted, so caught up in my own head, that I hadn't even noticed what was handed to me. How many moments had I rushed through like that? How many sunrises had I ignored? Meals I had eaten without tasting, conversations I had only half listened to. I had spent years moving fast, but I hadn't been truly present for any of it. I thought about John Lennon, who famously said, Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. How often do we let life pass us by because we're too focused on what comes next? A few weeks later, I heard a Zen teaching that changed me. A man was always in a hurry, running from one task to another, until one day, he met a master who told him, "When you drink tea, just drink tea." At first, the man was confused, but as he practiced, he realized something profound. Drinking tea wasn't just about drinking. It was about being there for the moment, feeling the warmth of the cup in his hands, noticing the aroma, savoring each sip. I decided to try it, not just with tea, but with everything. When I walked, I felt the ground beneath my feet instead of rushing to my destination. When I ate, I tasted each bite instead of mindlessly scrolling through my phone. When I listened to a friend, I truly listened, not just waiting for my turn to speak. And something shifted. The more I slowed down, the more I realized how much I had been missing. The sound of birds in the morning, the way sunlight filters through the leaves, the joy of laughing so hard that time seems to stop. The world isn't in a hurry. The trees don't rush to grow. The rivers don't hurry to reach the ocean. And yet, everything happens in its own perfect time. So why do we, if you're always rushing to the next thing, ask yourself, what's the finish line? And when you get there, will you have actually lived? Because life isn't about how fast you move. It's about how deeply you experience each moment. 8. Stop worrying about the future. I've spent so many nights lying awake, worrying about things that hadn't even happened yet. What if I fail? What if I lose everything? What if I make the wrong choice? The future always seemed like this big, looming storm, full of uncertainties and endless what-ifs. But one day, I realized something. None of those fears ever helped me. Think about it. How many times have you worried about something, only to look back later and realize that it either never happened, or it wasn't as bad as you imagined? I once read that worry is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it gets you nowhere. Keeps your mind busy, but it doesn't actually change anything. I thought about Maya Angelou, a woman who faced unimaginable struggles, yet carried herself with grace and wisdom. She once said, "If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude." So I started asking myself, is this worry helping me? If the answer was no, I let it go. And here's the most powerful truth. You have already survived every hard day, every challenge, every uncertain moment that life has thrown at you. Think about that. There were times you thought you wouldn't make it, but you did. Times you thought you would break, but you didn't. You are still here. That means whatever comes next, you will handle it just like you always have. Buddhism teaches that the future is an illusion. The only real thing is this moment. Right now, the breath you are taking, the warmth of your skin, the sound of life happening around you. And if you really pay attention, you'll notice that in this moment, right here, right now, you are okay. So what if, instead of worrying about what's ahead, you simply trusted yourself? What if you believed that no matter what happens, you will figure it out like you always have? Maybe then you could finally exhale, finally be free, and maybe, just maybe, you would realize that the life you've been waiting for isn't somewhere in the future. It's here. It's now. It's been with you all along. So, what would happen if you stopped worrying and finally let yourself live? Letting go is not about giving up. It's about choosing peace over struggle. It's about deciding that your time, your energy, and your happiness are too precious to waste on things that no longer serve you. As you move forward, ask yourself, what am I still carrying that I no longer need? Whose approval am I still chasing? What worries about the future are stealing the joy of today? And most importantly, what if you allowed yourself to finally let them go? Because happiness isn't about having more, doing more, or proving more. It's about being present, being free, and embracing life as it is. So, as we close today's reflection, I invite you to take a deep breath and make a small commitment. Choose one thing to release today, just one. A worry, a regret, a need for control. And as you let it go, notice the lightness that follows. If this message resonated with you, give this video a thumbs up, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and let's continue this journey of wisdom together. Subscribe to Lotus Light Teachings for more insights on finding peace and joy in everyday life. Until next time, may you walk lightly, love deeply, and live with the freedom that comes from letting go.